rewind whatever we did last week. Okay, so we have seen first order linear PDEs with constant coefficients, and also we have seen first order linear PDEs variable coefficients. So we recollect what we did. So the first order linear PDE with variable coefficients. So this is the equation which we have seen: ax comma y into x plus bx comma y into y plus cxy equal into u equal to fxy. Then we made that a canonical form. Okay, then we solve this using the standard ODE. Okay, this is kind of ODE. So then we saw that using this integrating factor, and then we saw this. Okay, so this is the things which we have covered so far. Now let's go for the first order quasi-linear PDE. So a quasi-linear PDE looks like this form. Okay, so quasi-linear PDE always look this form: a of x comma y comma u into ux. Okay, for the first order, p of x comma y comma u into uy equal to c of x comma y comma u. Okay, so this is the first order linear PDE. Now what we need to do is that we are trying to bring that into the again the same format, like we can write this in this way: a comma b comma minus c comma, okay, c into ux uy minus 1, okay, equal to 0. That means we are trying to take this as b, and this is going to take this as b, and this is going to be some other vector. So d, I'm just trying to find what is my dv in these terms. Okay, in this one. So it is not going to be dv here. It is going to be different, because dv means you will have ux and uy, but here minus 1 is there. So it is not going to be exactly same as what we have. We are going to go in a different direction. Okay, let's see that. So what we have is that we have some conditions here. Okay, so this is throughout today's class. These are the conditions which you are assuming that a comma b comma c. Okay, a b c belongs to c1 of omega. What is c1 of omega? Continuously differentiable. Okay, this first continuously differentiable. So that is the condition I am just assuming that. Now what I am going to do is that I am just trying to make omega naught, which is nothing but the projection of omega in the xy plane. Okay, I'm just making omega naught as a projection of omega in the xy plane. Okay, what is omega? Omega is nothing but subset of R cube. Okay, because ABC is there. Okay, ABC is there. ABC belongs to C1 of omega. A is a function of x comma y comma u. Therefore, it is a function of omega is a function of omega is a subset of R cube. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is omega naught. I'm just going to make a projection on the xy plane. Only the xy plane we are going to. Then we are going to define the solution of this equation as we defined in the integral surface. Okay. Now what is an integral surface? So we'll just see that here. Suppose D is a subset of omega. Okay. D is a subset of omega. Okay. Omega naught is nothing but a projection. Okay, means this is a projection, means subset of R square. Okay. Now what we have, U is a function from D to R. Okay, E is a function from D to R. That is called as a solution of this equation. Okay, that is be a solution of this equation. Then what we have is that this U is a function of x comma y. That means it is going to represent a three-dimensional surface. Okay, that three-dimensional surface, what we have is that three-dimensional surface we are going to call it as the it's a surface in the Euclidean space. Okay, that surface I am just going to call it as an integral surface corresponding to a given solution. Okay, that I am going to call it as integral surface. Given solution. So that is called the integral surface. So what is the integral surface? The surface represented by this U. Okay, it's going to satisfy the solution. Okay, it is going to satisfy this equation, and U is a function from D to R, and that is going to represent a surface. Okay, Euclidean space, a surface in Euclidean space. Any doubts in this one? Integral surface?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. So now, as I said, here what we have is that we have something called ux uy minus 1. D is I'm just denoting E of a comma bc. D is equal to a of x comma y comma u, E of x comma y comma u, etc. Okay. Now what we have is that we have this one. Okay. This B, whatever we have here, okay, this B is called characteristic vector field. Okay. This B is called characteristic vector field. This B is called characteristic vector field. Okay. Of the equation number 2. This is equation number 2. So for this equation, this is called characteristic vector field. Okay. Now we are going to define a characteristic curve because the linear coefficients you have seen that the conditional coefficients you have seen that characteristic line will be forming. Whereas if it comes to the variable coefficients, you have seen that it is going to be a characteristic curve. Instead of a characteristic line, it is going to be a characteristic curve. The same way here you are going to get a characteristic curve. Okay, this characteristic curve is going to be in the three dimensional. Okay, because x, y, u is also there. Now I am going to denote gamma, which is nothing but a characteristic curve. Okay, gamma is nothing but a characteristic curve. So that I am just going to denote as so gamma is a x equal to x of s, y equal to y of s, and u equal to u of s. Means I am going to write it in terms of a parametric form. Okay, I'm just trying to write it in the parametric form. For some yes. Okay, for some, I can just find some parameter yes, such that s can be the parametric curve can be represented, the characteristic can be represented this form x equal to x of s, y equal to y of s, y equal to y of s. Why do you want to do that? Because our aim is that we are trying to solve the quasi-linear PDE. That quasi-linear PDE, we are trying to convert it into the form of a system of ODEs, so that we can solve the problem. Okay, that is the ultimate aim. So we have, as we did earlier, what we can do is that again we can do the same kind of thing. Okay, we did the same kind of thing for the PDEs. Okay, with variable coefficient. Almost same thing we are doing here. What we are going to do? We are trying to find what is our dx by ds. Okay, dx by ds. We are choosing this characteristic term. We should say that dx by ds equal to d of x comma y comma u. dy by ds equal to b of x comma y comma u, du by ds equal to c of x comma y comma u. Okay, so this is the one which I am trying to choose. Then what we can do is that we can solve this system. Okay, this is going to be a system. This we can solve it. Okay, or this can be written in this format also. Okay, dx by ax comma y comma u, dy by bx comma y comma u, du by cx comma y comma u. That also we can write. Okay, this is an autonomous ODE, and we are going to prove that if ABC belongs to C1 of omega. Okay, if ABC belongs to C1 of omega, in this case, okay, for all this cases, dx by ds, dy by ds, etc., du by ds, with some initial condition. Okay, so each part with the initial condition. That initial condition is nothing but the characteristic are common. Okay, I am going to get a initial condition for this one. This is an autonomous ODE. For this ODE, I will give an initial condition. But if that initial condition is given, what you can do is that you can go to the ODE courses, they are ODE theory. Then you can see that this setup has a solution. Okay, existence of uniqueness. Whatever conditions are imposed over there, the same conditions you can impose here. If that conditions are satisfied, then you are going to get a unique solution for your ODE. Since you get a unique solution for the ODE, what you can get is that you can get a unique solution. The existence of uniqueness theorem for PDE. This is the underlying idea for all the cases whatever we have discussed. Okay, either it is a linear PDE with constant coefficient or linear PDE with variable coefficient. Okay, or semi-linear PDE, all these cases come into the picture because we have seen in the first class that linear PDE subset of linear PDE is a proper subset of semi-linear PDE. Okay, this is proper subset of quasi-linear. Okay, now I am just developing only the existence and uniqueness theorem for quasi-linear PDE. The same kind of conditions you can impose for semi-linear PDE. Okay, so that is the reason we are just giving existence and uniqueness theorem only for quasi-linear. Okay. Okay. So the solution of this this system, okay, the solution of this characteristic system is called characteristic curves of the quasi-linear case. Whatever you get the solution for this characteristic system, that is called the characteristic curves for this given PDE. Okay, any questions? Okay. So let's go to the next one. This characteristic equation, whatever we have written here, okay, whatever we have written here, this is also called Monge's equation. Okay, this is also called as Monge's. Monge's definition. So this here. Monge's equation. Similarly, if you write the solution of the Monge's equation, the solution of the Monge's equation, form a two-parameter communicators. So it will form a two-parameter communicators. We'll see a little later how it comes, etc. So this curve, okay, whatever you get it here, that is also called as Monge curve. Okay, that is called Monge curve. Now the projection of the Monge curve. Okay, so this is going to form a Monge curve is going to form a two-parameter communicators in the x, y, u space. Okay, that is going to form a curve in the three-dimensional space. Okay, x, y, u space. Okay, that will be space. Now if you project that in the xy plane, okay, the projection of the two-parameter communicators in the xy plane, that is called the characteristic curve. Okay, so there is a difference between characteristic curve and Monge curve. Okay, Monge curve is like curve in xy-u plane, xy-u space. Okay, whereas in the projection of Monge curve on the xy plane is called characteristic curve. And the characteristic direction, this characteristic direction is also known as Monge direction. Okay. Okay. Any doubts? Let's go to the theorem.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So now we are trying to prove the existence and uniqueness. So before that, we are trying to establish some more results so that we go back that. So now what we have is that we have a characteristic curve. Okay, we have a characteristic curve here. So this is the equation which is given because we need to use that. I have a characteristic curve. Okay, that characteristic curve is an initial. Okay, I have an initial curve gamma naught node like a initial condition for my OD. Okay, so what is gamma naught? Gamma naught is nothing but x equal to x naught of s, y equal to y naught of s, and b equal to b naught of s. Okay, I'm just giving some characteristic curve that intersect the integral surface. Integral surface is nothing but the solution which you are getting from the cos linear P. Okay, that integral surface at a point, it is going to intersect at a point P of x naught, comma y naught, comma b naught. It is going to intersect. Okay, so the condition is, we have two conditions now already. So one is the characteristic curve is given. Okay, that is going to intersect at the integral surface s at the point. Okay, now another one, u is the function from D to R. Okay, u is the function from D to R. Means what is D? D is nothing but the subset of omega naught. What is omega naught? Omega naught is nothing but the subset of omega naught is nothing but the projection of the xy u in the xy plane. Okay, the projection of the xy u space in the, I mean the whatever we have solution that we are going to project it in the xy plane. Then we have one more condition, u belongs to C1 of T. Okay, u belongs to C1 of T. Means this condition. Then what the theorem says is that this gamma naught itself, see what I am saying is it is intersecting with the curve S. The condition is that I am assuming that gamma naught is intersecting with S. Okay, gamma naught and intersect with the S. Okay, at a point P of x naught comma y. Now what we are saying is that gamma naught itself is a subset of S. Okay, gamma naught itself is a subset of S. What does it mean? Gamma naught itself is subset of S means what we are trying to say is that u naught, okay, if it is already a subset of S, what we are trying to say is that u naught of S is nothing but, okay, u naught of S is nothing but it is going to be u of, okay, x naught of S, comma y naught of S. Okay, so this is the implications I am going to do. Okay, so these are the conditions. I have gamma naught, this is the integral surface. Gamma naught intersects with S is P of x naught comma y naught comma y naught. Okay, this intersecting at a point. And u is a function from D to R and u belongs to C1 naught. Okay, now we are trying to prove that u naught of S equal to u of x naught comma y naught of S. Is the statement clear? Is the statement clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's prove that. Okay, it's a very simple proof. We are trying to prove that. So what we are going to do is that we are trying to take a, again we are going to use it using the ODE only. So I'm just taking one function u of s. Okay, u of s is nothing but what I'm going to take is that u naught of s minus u of x naught of s, comma y naught of s. Okay, where s belongs to. Now what we have that P of, okay, so it is given that P of x naught comma y naught, the condition was given that P of x naught comma y naught comma u naught. Okay, p of x naught comma y naught comma u naught belongs to S intersection gamma. That was the condition. Okay, it was given that gamma naught is intersecting with the integral surface S. Okay, so that was at the point p of x naught comma y naught comma u naught. So that is given. Okay, now what we have is that so now what we can say is that there will be some S naught. Okay, there will be some S naught such that what we have is that for that given X naught there exists some X naught. Okay, so that means so this is belonging to S as well as gamma naught. Okay, it is belonging to S as well as gamma naught. Therefore, there exists some S naught. Okay, there will be some S naught such that what it will be doing, that is going to satisfy this condition x equal to, okay, so it is going to satisfy this condition x equal to x naught equal to x of s naught, okay, y equal to y naught equal to y of s naught, okay, and u is equal to u naught of s naught. Why it is so? See, it is belonging to both cases. S as well as intersection gamma naught is also there. It is in the gamma naught. So if it is in gamma naught, what you can say is that we have the condition that what is the condition given? It is given that x equal to x naught of s is given. Therefore, what you can say is that there will be some s naught such that it is going to belong to, it is going to satisfy this condition x naught equal to x of s naught. Okay, so it is belong to gamma naught as well as s. Both conditions are satisfied. So it is belonging to S as well as intersection gamma naught. But what is S? S is nothing but the integral surface. Okay, if it is integral surface, okay, what you can say is that this is going to be, this x naught is going to be something like x of s naught because it is belonging to S. Okay, it is belonging to S. What is S? S is nothing but the integral surface. Therefore, everything can be written as x of something. Okay. So that is the reason we have that x naught equal to x of s naught, y naught equal to y of s naught, same reasons like y naught equal to y of s naught. It is belonging to both the places. That is the reason. Okay. Now, then what will happen here? So what will happen here? See here, if I substitute over here, what is this u naught of u of s naught is going to become like? This is going to become like u of x naught minus y naught of s. So what I will decide u of s naught equal to 0. Okay, u of s naught equal to 0 I am going to get. Okay, so this is the things which we have. Okay, x naught equal to, so I am going to get a s naught such that x naught equal to x of s naught, y naught equal to y of s naught, y naught equal to y of s naught, and u of s naught equal to 0. These are all the conditions I am going to get because it is belonging to S intersection. S naught belongs to x. S naught belongs to y. Okay, and p of x naught comma y naught belongs to S intersection. That is the reason. Now, what is du by ds? What is du by ds from here? So I can write this as, this is a function of s alone. So I can write this as du naught by ds. Okay, minus this is du by. So here I have two things. Okay, u is also there, x is also there. Okay, so what I will get is that I will get something like ux, okay, or ux naught also, ux into, okay, dx by ds, dx naught by ds, minus uy, dy naught by ds. Okay, why? Because x naught is nothing but x of s naught. Okay, x naught is nothing but x of s naught. So what I am going to get is that x naught is going to be some function of x into s naught. So for each s, you will get a similar thing. Y naught equal to similar. Okay, so what we are getting is du by ds equal to du naught by ds, dx into dx naught by ds minus dy naught by ds. Now what is this one? From the gamma curve, see the gamma one. Sorry, what is this one? From the characteristic equation which we are saying, okay, dx by ds, dy by ds, du by ds. From this one, what we can get is that we can just write this as what is du naught by ds. Du naught by ds is going to be c of x naught comma x naught of s comma y naught of s comma u naught of s. Okay. Similarly, ux into what is the dx naught by ds? So we have seen that dx by ds is this one, a of x comma y comma u. Okay. So I'm just replacing wherever x, I'm just replacing with x naught. So a of x naught s, y naught of s, u naught of s. Similarly, y naught of s, I can do the same thing from equation number 3 because that is the characteristic equation for my quasi-linear medium. So I'll get this. Okay. Now what is it? Now what is u naught of s from here? I can write this u naught of s. Okay, from here what I can write is that u naught of s equal to u of s plus u of x naught of s comma y naught of s. Okay, so that's what I got. But what is that u of x naught of s comma y naught of s? Okay, that I can write it as some u of s. Okay, that I can write it as this is going to be a function of x. Okay, because x naught is also a function of x, y naught is also a function of s. So this I am just writing as small u of s. Okay, small u of s is nothing but u of x naught of s comma y naught of s. Okay, that means what I have is that this is a function of s. Okay, first one c of x comma c of x comma. So this one is function of x. Yes. Okay, because c is a function of x naught of s. Okay, x naught of s is a function of s. Y naught is also a function of s. U of s plus u of capital U of s plus u of s, that is also a function of s. Therefore, c is a function of s. Similarly, the other one it is a function of s. Again, dx is a function of x. It's a, because I have our u is going to represent. Okay, so therefore, what we get is that we are going to get f as a the right hand side is becoming like whatever I have here. This is going to become like f of s comma u. Okay, du by ds equal to f of s comma u. Any doubt so far? So what we obtained is that du by ds equal to f of s comma u. That means what we got is that we got a ODE. Okay, so the we got a ODE. Now when does this ODE has a solution? When does this ODE has a solution? So again we have to use all the theories of ODE, whatever the conditions are there. Okay, the continuously differentiable, etc. It's required. Now we got to prove that du by ds equal to f of s comma u. That f of s comma u is a continuously differentiable. Means it is continuous. At least you say that it is continuous. Then you get to say that it is going to be obtaining the solution using the fundamental theorem of calculus or the theory whatever you have studied in your ODE courses. Okay, so that is the one which you are trying to take. Now, so that I have already mentioned. U of s is nothing but u of x naught of u of s is nothing but u of x naught of u of s. Mentioned that already. So it is an ODE with the initial condition. What is the initial condition? The initial condition is u of s naught equal to 0 is there. Okay, du by ds equal to f of s comma u and u of s naught equal to 0. This is the initial condition is given. Now we have assumed that a, b, c. Okay, a, b, c is nothing but the coefficients of ux, dy and the right hand side. These are continuously differentiable. We have already mentioned. Okay, because a, b, c belongs to c1 of omega we mentioned. So these are continuously differentiable. Also, we mentioned that u belongs to d, c1 of d. I think c1 of d. Okay, that also we have mentioned in the theorem. Still, okay, so c1 of d. Therefore, what we are going to get is that u is also continuously differentiable. Therefore, what will happen here? C is continuously differentiable, A is continuously differentiable, U is continuously differentiable. Therefore, Ux is going to be continuous. Okay, Uy is going to be continuous. Then again, other things. Okay, Us plus Us, everything is going to be continuous. Therefore, what will happen? F of s comma u is going to be at least you can get locally Lipschitz. Okay, at least you can get locally Lipschitz. The function f of s comma u is locally Lipschitz. Now, if the locally if the Lipschitz condition is satisfied, what you can say we are going to get because u of s naught equal to 0 is also there. So what you are going to get? You are going to get the answer further. Okay. Now, since u of s is equal to 0 is also a solution. You just substitute u of s equal to 0 here. That is also a solution for this. Okay. Therefore, what we are going to get is that u is identically 0 because of the existence of uniqueness theorem in the ODE. What we get that u is identically equal to 0. Okay, u of s equal to 0. Therefore, u is identically equal to 0. That means what? What we got is that u of s equal to identically 0 means u naught of s equal to u of x naught of s comma y naught of s. That's what we are expecting. U of s equal to 0 means what? U naught of s equal to u of x naught of s into y naught of s. That's the one. Any doubts? Please go through this proof again. Okay, just send the notes. Please go through this proof again. If you have any doubt at any time, just let me know. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. These are all the theorems. I'm just giving it as an exercise for you. Now what we are trying to say is that theorem number 2, suppose D is a subset of omega naught, okay, and S is a S is a surface in R2. Then the same condition, whatever we have assumed in the previous theorem, almost same condition. Okay, then what we are trying to prove is that this is almost simple one. Okay, so what we are trying to prove is that if S is a integral surface, okay, if it's an integral surface of the equation number 2, then what we are saying is that it is equivalent to say that the surface S is the union of characteristic curves of the equation 2. See, here what we try to do is that we have taken only one thing. We are taking one characteristic curve, okay, and then we have taken the integral surface that we are trying to intersect. That intersection, what we are trying to say is that if it is intersecting, that gamma naught itself is a subset of S we have mentioned. Okay. Now here we are generalizing that. What we are saying is that this is an integral surface, and if you take any characteristic curves of the equation number 2, okay, then S can be written as the union of this characteristic curve. Okay, here we mentioned only one curve we have taken, and that curve is subset of S we have mentioned. Okay, that characteristic curve is a subset of S we have mentioned. Now what we are trying to say here is that S itself is a union of characteristic curves only. Okay. Okay. Now this is equivalent, so we got to prove 1 implies 2 and 2 implies 1. Okay, so 1 implies 2 already we have proven. Already we have proved here. Okay, if S is a integral surface, what we have proved is that sorry, 2 implies 1 implies 2. We can just 1 implies 2 is Paulus-Prutt theorem 1 easy. Okay, because we have already mentioned that for this gamma naught is some arbitrary curve only I have taken. Okay, the gamma naught I have taken arbitrary curve. So what you can say is that you can just take gamma naught, take all take arbitrary gamma naught, okay, which is intersecting the integral surface. Then take the union of that. Then what you can say is that you can prove that this is going to form. Now what you need to prove is that you need to prove the constants that I did as an exercise. That is also easy. Okay. So corollary one from theorem 2, what it says, suppose S1 and S2 are two integral surface, okay, such that P is a point in S1 and S2. Then what you can find is that you can find some characteristic curve which is passing through P that lies in both of S1 and S2. Okay, S is going to be a surface. S is going to be an integral. S1 is an integral surface. S2 is an integral surface. Suppose P is a point in S1 intersection S2. Okay, then what this theorem is saying is that you will find some characteristic. Okay, some part of the characteristic passing through P lies on both. So I will just find some characteristic curve. Okay, this S is going to be this gamma is going to be where the going to be part of, okay, some S will be here, okay, something here it will be. Okay, this is a surface, this is a surface, that is going to be part. It will be passing through, it will pass through, okay, so P is going to be somewhere here, suppose P is somewhere here, then what is going to be happen? So gamma is going to be passing through both S1 as well as S2. Okay. If two integral surfaces intersect without touching and the intersection occur, okay, if two integral surfaces intersect without touching, okay, and the intersection in a curve gamma, then gamma is a characteristic curve. So we have two integral surfaces, okay, without touching the intersection, without touching, okay, without touching means there is no, it is not going to touch each other, okay, without touching. And the intersection in a curve, okay, and the intersection in a curve. So and it is having only an intersection in the curve. Then that gamma is a characteristic. This is also again a simple. Okay. Okay. Now we will come to that existence and uniqueness theorem. So, do you know the inverse mapping theorem in analysis course? From analysis course.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the inverse mapping theorem?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What does it say?
Inverse mapping, inverse function. Sir, is inverse function theorem, right?
Yeah, inverse function theorem. Yeah.
It says like.
Okay. I'll just state that as it is from the ruling book. Suppose F is a C1 map. F is a C1. Okay, I think as Rudy used to give this notation kind of. Okay, C1 or C1. Okay, so C1 F is a C1 map. C1 mapping means what? C1 means it's a continuously differentiable. Okay, C1 mapping. If you see a C1 mapping, often open set is subset of R power n. Okay, and often open set is subset of R. Suppose f dash of A is invertible. F dash of A is invertible for some A in E, and B is equal to f of G. Okay, B is equal to f of A. Then what it says is that directions and open set U and B in R power n such that A belongs to U and B belongs to B. F is 1 1 and sorry, there is a mistake over there. It's not omega u, it should be f of u. Okay, it should be f of u is equal to b. Okay, f of u is equal to b. It is not omega, maybe some mistake. F of u is equal to b. Okay, so it's f is 1 1 and f of u is equal to b. This is the inverse mapping. This is first part of the inverse. Second one, what he says is that G is the inverse of F. Suppose G is the inverse of F defined on B by G of F of X equal to X. Okay, G is so what he is saying is that G is the inverse of F defined in B equal to by G of F of X equal to X. Then G is also a C1 function. Okay, C1 of B. This is the inverse mapping theorem we might have studied in the. Now what we are trying to do is that we are just trying to rewrite this theorem for R square for the existence and uniqueness theorem for positive matrix. This is going to be used for the existence and uniqueness theorem for positive matrix. I'm not going to give the proof of this. Okay, I'm just giving only the because it is already proved in the analysis course. I'm just not going to give the proof. So we are trying to get something for our PDE1. So for that we are trying to rewrite the theorem in a little different way. Okay. So now what we have is that we have two domains. Okay. So we are trying to write that in terms of R square. So what I have is I take a point. Okay. Here we have to take a point A. Okay. A I am taking. A belongs to E I am taking. The similar way here I am taking P. P is nothing. P naught is nothing but S naught comma P naught. S naught comma P naught belongs to B. Okay, which is a subset of R S comma T. Okay, S comma R square S means here I am going to denote the variables as S comma T. That's the reason I am S comma T. Okay, whatever I am going to denote here, this coordinate system I am just going to denote as S comma T. Similarly, what I have another point Q naught. Okay, Q naught of X naught comma Y naught. Okay, which belongs to D dash. Okay, this is going to be again subset of R square. Here I am going to denote it as comma X comma Y. Okay, the coordinate system I am going to denote it as. Now what do you have? You try to find you have a function pi from D to D dash. D to D dash. Okay, and you have the condition that pi belongs to C1 of D. Okay, C1 of D. Almost same thing what we did here. Okay, F is a C1 mapping, so instead of F, I am just taking pi. Okay, pi is a function from D to D dash. Pi belongs to C1 of D. Okay, and it is given that. So the next one it is given that B is equal to F of E, right? B is equal to F of E. I am just going to write as pi of P naught equal to Q naught. Okay, I am just trying to match whatever we got. Then what we can say is that see pi is a mapping from D to D dash, right? So what I can write is that I can write pi as this way. Okay, I can write x to x equal to x of s comma t, y equal to y of s comma t. Okay, because pi is a mapping from D to D dash. So I'm just writing what is the co-image of what is the image of that one. That image is going to be in the terms of x comma y. Therefore x equal to this coming from D. Therefore x equal to x of s comma t, y equal to y of s. Okay, and I have the condition that okay. So I'm just trying to use the condition that f is 1 1 etc. Okay, that is open set etc. So that condition we are trying to use. So for that what we are giving is that j pi. Okay, j pi is nothing but the Jacobian of pi at P naught. Okay, Jacobian of pi at P naught is going to be dou by dou of x comma y. Okay, dou of x comma y divided by dou s comma t. Okay, what is that? So dou of x comma y, dou of s comma t is nothing but dou by dou x by dou s, dou y by dou s, dou x by dou t, dou y by dou t. Okay, so xs into yt at p naught. So dou x by dou s into dou y by dou t into p naught minus dou x by dou t minus dou y by dou s into p naught. So this I am just assuming it is not equal to 0. This Jacobian is not equal to 0. So these are all the assumptions which you are making. Okay, then what we are saying is that direct is neighborhood. Okay, then direct is a neighborhood u of p naught in D. Direct is a neighborhood u of p naught in D. Okay, and u dash we got B. Here D instead of that, here we have u dash. U dash in u dash of q naught in D dash. Okay, such that then it is saying that there is a inverse matrix there, right? So that means I will have an inverse matrix. Pi inverse will be there. Okay, pi inverse. Okay, that is belonging to C1 of u dash. C1 of u dash. Okay, such that what it will happen? Pi inverse of u dash equal to u. Okay, so this is the consistency. And also that if I just find what is j pi inverse of q naught, because pi is mapping from D to D dash, so q naught is in the D dash. So if I take j pi inverse of q naught, that is nothing but taking the j pi if j pi if p naught of whole inverse. Okay, j pi if p inverse whole. Okay, it's a matrix. That is called your matrix in that. So here there is a notation confusion is there. J by p naught is going to be a matrix. Okay, usually they just denote it as a determinant that is not equal to 0. But here there is notation confusion. Okay, so it's a matrix. Okay, J by p inverse is going to be a matrix. That matrix here. Okay. Now what we are trying to prove is that. So this is the alternative, means like whatever we have written in the inverse function theorem in rule book, the same theorem we are writing it in terms of our partial differential equations setup. Okay, or the ordinary differential equation setup we are trying to do. Now we are going to use this theorem for our existence of uniqueness theorem. Okay, so that is the reason for stating this theorem. Okay, so existence of uniqueness theorem. Now what we are trying to prove is that we are trying to prove there exists a solution depending on the conditions for the setup which we have seen already. Okay, that we are trying to prove. We are trying to prove that is a existence and uniqueness for this quasi-linear PD. Okay, the quasi-linear PD, whatever we have given. For that, what we are trying to prove is that it has a solution. Okay, it has at most one solution, or at least some solution exists depending on the condition. Okay. Now consider the first order. Again, consider this first order linear quasi-linear PDE. Okay, omega subscript r cube. Where ABC again the same condition. ABC belongs to A comma B comma C. C1 of omega. Now take a curve. Okay, again same curve what we discussed in the previous one. Gamma is a curve from gamma is a characteristic curve. We can say okay, gamma is a initial condition. Initial smooth curve. X equal to x naught of s. Y equal to y naught of s and u equal to u naught of s. Okay, and what we have is that this is a initial smooth curve. Initial smooth curve means this is a C1. Okay, this is a smooth curve in omega. Now what we have another condition. Okay, second condition is that d of x naught of dx naught by ds. Okay, dx naught by ds into d of x naught comma x naught of s comma y naught of s comma u naught of s minus dy by ds dy naught by ds into a of x naught comma s x naught of s y naught of s u naught of s not equal to 0. Okay, this is not equal to 0 for all s in close to 0. So this condition, this is one condition. Okay, and I have given an initial smooth curve, and if this condition, this is one of the important conditions. If this condition is not satisfied, you will have to make plus or even sometimes existence will not be there. Okay, so what it is saying is that if it is there, then direct is at most one solution. If these conditions are satisfied, then direct is at most one solution. U equal to u of xy. Okay, direct is at most one solution. U equal to u of xy. Defined in a neighborhood of the initial curve. Defined in a neighborhood of the initial curve, it satisfies the equation and the initial condition. Okay, this is the theorem shown. Any confusion in this theorem? See, this is the condition. This is one of the important conditions. Dx naught by ds into d of x naught of s, y naught of s, y naught of s minus dy naught of s into d. Okay, this is not equal to 0. Then what it is saying is that it has at most one solution defined at the initial curve, defined at the neighborhood of the initial curve. Defined at the neighborhood of the initial curve, it satisfies this equation 2. Okay, and the initial condition is also given like u naught of s equal to u of x naught s. Any doubts in this one? Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let's try to do that. It's very simple. Okay. Again, consider the Cauchy problem. Okay, Cauchy problem for the ODE system. So we have this system dx by dt equal to, this is the characteristic system which we have already seen. Okay, the characteristic system is dx by dt equal to a, dy by dt equal to b, and dy by dt equal to c. Now the initial condition is, I'm just trying to write the initial condition. Initial condition is nothing but x of, initial condition for this one is nothing but x of s comma 0 equal to x naught of s. Okay, and similarly y of s comma 0 equal to y naught of s, and u of x comma equal to y naught of s. Now this is a ODE, and I have the initial condition. Therefore, what we can say, it is going to get a unique by the theorems in the ODE, existence of uniqueness theorem. What it will get is that we will get a unique solution. That solution is going to be x equal to x of s comma t, y equal to y of s comma t, and u is equal to u of s comma t. Okay. So that what is it given? So that there is this d belongs to, because you need that condition, right? The d belongs to something alpha, minimum of alpha comma beta, a by b, a comma b by k, like you have seen in the Picard's theorem or Peano's existence theorem. The same way here. So we have 0 comma t. It is given that 0 comma d belongs to alpha s comma beta s. Okay, where alpha and beta are some continuous functions. So it is belong to that set. Okay, only in that way. This is once again coming from the uniqueness theorem for ODEs. So now what we have, okay, so now what I'm going to take is that I'm just trying to find what is my d. Okay, d, I'm just defining d is nothing but a subset of omega dash. Okay, omega dash, so that such that h comma t belongs to s is in 0 comma 1, d is belongs to this one. So then what is this one? D is the projection of omega in x y. This d is the projection of omega in x y. Now what is so we have defined pi. Okay, pi is defined as, we can define pi. Okay, we define pi. Okay, we define pi as from the inverse mapping theorem. So what we got a d. Okay, and we are trying to define a pi. Okay, we are trying to define a pi such that pi is a mapping from d to d dash. Pi is a mapping from d to d dash. Okay, from the inverse mapping theorem. I'm trying to find, I have x comma y is there, now s comma t is there. I'm trying to define pi from d comma d dash. Okay, that's what I'm defining here. Pi is a mapping from d to d dash. Then what you can say, j of pi naught, j of pi at t equal to 0 is nothing but what is going to come here, dx naught by ds into b and dy naught by ds into a is not equal to 0. Okay, this is going to, this is given, this condition is given. Okay, therefore what you will get, you have a mapping like, x is a mapping from x comma s comma t, y is a mapping from s comma y of s comma t. Therefore by inverse mapping theorem what you will get, you will get a pi inverse. Okay, so you have a pi is a mapping from, pi is nothing but, it is given like this, x equal to x of s comma t, y equal to y of s comma t is given. Okay, as we have seen in the inverse mapping theorem. Then there will be pi inverse such that, okay, pi inverse such that s equal to, pi is nothing but s equal to s of x comma y and t is equal to t of x comma y. Okay, so these are the things. Then what you can say, by the inverse mapping theorem, for this is going to be defined on a n dash. Okay, n dash of gamma dash, where gamma dash is a projection of this gamma and the x y. Okay, so last line almost we are done. Now what is that? So u is a function of x comma y, that I am just trying to write in terms of s of x comma y. So what I can rewrite that, u is equal to u I can write as u is equal to u of s of x comma y, okay, and t of x comma y. This I can write as pi of x comma y. Okay, u I can write as something pi of x comma y. Now we are just writing this. Now what is a pi x and u pi b pi y? We can write this pi is nothing but function of x and t. Therefore, it is going to become like a into us into sx plus ut into tx. That is chain rule. Again b into us into sy plus ut into y. That is again chain rule. Now collect the us terms. Okay, if you collect the us term, what it will is that you will get xt into xx plus yt into sy. Okay, that is going to become like 0 because dx by dt to ds by dt will come. Okay, dx by dt ds by dt will become like dx by. So this is going to be like dx by st into sx. Okay, st into sx. xt into sx is nothing but dx by dt. Okay, into s by dx. Okay, this is going to be ds by dt. Okay, so plus is going to come. So ds by dt, but s and t are independent. S and t are independent each other. Therefore, ds by dt is going to become like 0. Okay, plus term will come. So that is going to become like ds by dt. That is to become 0. Okay, only the other side will become. Okay, the second will come ut xt into tx. Okay, xt into tx is going to become like dx by dt into dt by dx. So you will get like dt by dt. The dt by dt is 1. Okay, that is only this remains. Therefore, what you will get is you will get c. Okay, so that means what? A pi of x comma y is a solution of the quasi-linear because a into pi x plus p into pi y equal to c. That means pi is a solution of this quasi-linear. That's all. Therefore, I found a solution. Okay, pi is nothing but my solution. Also, you can write that pi of x naught of s, y naught of s equal to, you can substitute it over there, u of x naught of s, y naught of s, etc. Then what you will get is that you will get that u of s comma 0 equal to u of s is equal to. Okay, that also I just leave it as an exercise. That's all. Okay, that is the ultimate thing. Suppose now we need to prove the uniqueness. So uniqueness, I'll just take another couple of 1 minute. That will be start. Now we have shown that this pi is a solution. Okay, this pi is the pi which I have defined. Okay, which is a solution of this quasi-linear PDE which I have taken. Suppose two solutions are there. Pi 1 and pi 2 are two solutions. Then what we are trying to prove is that we are trying to prove that this pi 1 and pi 2 are same. That we are trying to prove. So now pi 1 pi 2 are two distinct solutions satisfying the initial condition. Okay, the initial conditions. Right? Now take two integral surfaces. Therefore, you will get two integral surfaces. One S1 is one integral surface and S2 is another integral surface. Now once again take this system of PDE dx by dt equal to a of x comma y into pi of instead of u, I am just putting pi 1 of x comma y and pi 2 of x comma y. Okay. Second one is also dy by dt equal to not pi 1 is pi of x comma y. Then what you will find? We will find two solutions. Okay, one is x1 of x comma t, y1 of x comma t, and again x2 of x comma t, y2 of x comma t. Now this is these two are solutions of the system C. Okay, but that is nothing but a characteristic system. That characteristic system is ODE system, right? If it is an ODE system, what you will have for your ODE system, you will not have two solutions. You will have only one solution, unique solution. Okay, you will get only one solution, that is a unique solution. Therefore, from that uniqueness theorem, what you will have is that this x1 of x comma t, y1 of x comma t, y1 of x comma t is coinciding with the x2 of x comma t, y2 of x comma t. Okay, that's all. If that is coinciding, therefore the characteristics also going to coincide because that characteristic system, whatever you have, that is going to give you the unique solution. Okay, uniqueness theorem of ODEs, that is going to give you the uniqueness. Okay, because it is going to coincide. Therefore, the gamma 1, gamma 2 starting from the point P of x naught of x plus y. That means what? Your pi 1 and pi 2 are same. Okay, therefore there is no distinct solution will exist. This one is same. Okay, please go through this theorem once again. If you have any doubts, maybe you can just ask me in the next class. Okay, because we didn't do any magic here. We just defined mapping theorem.